welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Steve Ellick.
And today we're ostensibly talking about the Buick Envista. I think we're really going to be talking about the Chevy Trax. But the Buick Envista, we just bought a 2024 Buick Envista Preferred trim. It's a Buick. It's a new SUV coupe. It starts at $22,400, which is really low these days. Ours was $26,480 with the options including power seats, blind spot warning, which yes is optional, and adaptive cruise control. And that base price is less than half the average transaction price for a new car, which is just over $48,000 these days. So this is an affordable car. It's front wheel drive only, even though it's lifted up like an SUV. It's got a 3-cylinder, 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. EPA rating's 30 miles a gallon. We're going to put it through tests to find out what it gets in our real world ratings. It's got a new Buick logo, so you might not even know what it is. And it's the same overall design as the Trax. It came out of some of GM's Asian divisions around the same time as the Trax. It's a little larger in some ways, a little smaller in some ways. John, what do you think about this as I know you have some opinions about this as a Buick.
I just this isn't knocking affordable vehicles because, like you mentioned, it's significantly less expensive than the average new car today, and the average new car price is just obscene. So I know that we need a market for sub $20,000 vehicle new cars out there, and that is gone, if not almost going away.
Yeah, there's the Versa and the Mirage. And
the Mirage is going away.
Yeah.
So I mean, that in itself is a problem. However, I don't know what this does for the Buick brand to have a vehicle that has an MSRP of $22,400 in the sense that Buick historically has been a step up from a Chevrolet. Now, we know we've taken away a number of brands over the decades from GM, but so you have Chevrolet, you have Buick, you have Cadillac.
Yeah, Sloan's ladder of success is missing a few rungs there.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
It's like a bad playscape, that you've had when you were little and you go back and now it's missing on the ladders. But I just don't know how that helps. Look, it makes sense for the marketers. I just don't see it, particularly when it's so close in price to the Trax, which is a pretty good vehicle.
Oh yeah, why don't they call it a Trax Cross?
That's really what it should be. Let's put it out there. This is a Chevy Trax with a coupe style, basically, and a higher price tag.
Yeah, which follows, the whole Audi Q5 Sportback or BMW X4 versus X3. Chop it off, make it more expensive. But still, that's my big issue with the vehicle is that I don't see how it really is bringing someone in to the brand in the sense of Buick's delivering more. It's giving me a little more for, it's just a little nicer. I just don't see it.
It feels like those personal luxury coupes from the 70s where you're trying to advertise, I don't have any ties. I don't need it. I don't have kids.
Right.
I'm driving it feels like, and for those who don't remember, it was the sort of, the Pontiac Grand Am with a giant hood and just a tiny little cabin. You're sitting way back and it's just meant to, it's a styling thing.
Well, it is a style. I mean, and the people, we'll talk about it, but people who saw me driving it, I was at their house, I came by or whatever, they thought it was a good looking vehicle, and it is attractive looking in the front. That modern, almost EV look. So it has something going for it. But when you're inside, and that's where you spend your time with it, if you spend your whole time sitting in the driveway looking at it, then you'll be happy. But when you're in it, it's just kind of...
that's what it is. The interior really is. There's nothing luxury about it. There's nothing that I saw that was a step up from the Chevy Trax. It basically is a Chevy Trax with the Buick emblem. The fit and finish is what you'd expect for the price tag in the mid-20s.
Right.
It's cheap plastics, and the seats are cloth, not that nice material or anything, but I wouldn't really expect anything more from that. But then you say it's a Buick and you expected it to be a little bit luxury, and it's simply not. It's, again, just a Trax that's more expensive.
Right. And but it is at least appropriate for the price.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'd say it's good for the price.
It is.
I love the Trax. It's it might be my favorite car of 2024 personally.
I love the Trax too for what it delivers at that price.
Yeah.
And the Buick is the same way. It's just
It's $100 more. The MSRP is $100
It's just more expensive, and it delivers kind of less. Like you hauled around kids in it, and and I know I got a text from you over the weekend, like, oh, the headroom in this thing, and I know it's, on paper it's just like a couple of, a half-inch here, a little nip and tuck there, but it doesn't feel like that in the real world, and that's one of the reasons we're going to put some of these things to the test with our own testers here at CR to find out what fits in that back that's been cut off.
Exactly.
What did you find? Yeah.
That like coupe-like styling in the back. I got in the rear seat, and I'm pretty short. I'm 5'8", and I have a short torso at that. So usually I sit in cars, and headroom is never an issue for me. This is one of those cars where in the rear my head was grazing the headliner, which I've never experienced before. Kind of cool for to be a tall person for a little bit, but and I didn't really experience that in the rear seat of the Trax. I mean, as far as like child seats and everything, they fit great in the back because there's no headroom issues, and even my 4-year-old said for the Trax, she said, "Oh, where's that car with the good legroom?" Like she literally said that about the Trax, which is great for a small SUV.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, the feet hanging off and kicking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked fine. It just, again, it's the place in the lineup that makes me wonder. Driving it, yes, it gets a little noisy when you're really kind of throttling it on the highway to pass or something like that. But that's what that price category type of vehicle does. The ride's composed enough. The handling's fine. I mean, nothing surprising, nothing uneventful. It's not mushy. It's not engaging. It works well.
It was just very mediocre. Just nothing good, nothing bad about the handling.
But people are signing out this car. It's not like when we had, the Versa or the Mirage or the Rio, and it just kind of sat in the corner and no one. People want to drive it. It fits people's lifestyles. It's signed out for the next couple of weeks in terms of people taking this car home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cheap car, new car with Apple CarPlay, safety features, heated seats, heated steering wheel. Like, what more could you want from a brand new car?
Right.
All-wheel drive and standard blind spot warning.
Yes.
True. But other than that...
Right. I mean, adding in blind spot warning is, it's part of a package, so it's going to be, $595 to get that to both the vehicle, both the Trax and the Buick. So, it's still an affordable option. It should be standard. This day and age, we're not talking 5 years ago. I mean, it should really be standard, particularly in the luxury, or upscale, brand, so to speak. But still, I mean, $26,000 out the door, including destination, which is one of the cheaper ones, by the way, at $1,095. That's incredibly cheap nowadays.
Yeah,
which is scary. But yeah, it brings a lot. I mean, I would say I reached everything without a problem. Now, hard materials, stuff like that. But yeah, you could reach the screen fine. You could reach the climate control fine. You could see around, easy to back in and out. You don't even need the screen. I was able to, see everything well. Haul a bunch of stuff back and forth to where I needed to. It was great. The kids fit fine. They actually both sat in the back seat and didn't punch each other, which was fine. I would buy the Trax.
Yeah.
To be less disappointed in the sense of what is it delivering for them? What does it deliver at the brand?
Yeah.
Those commercials of like happy, millennials or whatever, like it's a Buick, like not this one.
I might be Gen Z at this point.
Okay. Yeah. But the next one up, the Envista maybe. I mean, not the Envista, the
Encore,
the Envision or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little more appropriate. That fits in the category. This, I don't know. It's not playing against an Audi Q3 or the new BMW X2. I mean, those are far more expensive. I don't know where this goes.
Yeah, it's a pure style play, and it makes the car a little worse and a little more expensive. Mm-hmm. The Trax, I mean, you're not fooling anyone when you show up in a $26,000 Buick. It doesn't make them think you're a billionaire,
right?
So might as well just buy the Trax. Have a little honesty, truth, and I wouldn't honestly, if someone said, here's your Chevy Trax, this is your car for the next 4 years, you don't have a choice, I would be totally fine with that.
Yep.
Trax is great. Yeah.
It's a great car. Yeah. I mean,
functional with its styling. And in this one you get that weird hatchback. So like we talked about that, but you also don't get a rear wiper.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up because that's a huge pet peeve of mine. Yeah, I think sedans should have. I mean, living in New England where
Right.
the snow builds up I think everything should have a rear wiper. That's just my...
The whole
I agree with that.
aerodynamics will clear the rear window does not
it
work with
won't.
slush or snow or any of that stuff. And every EV we have in the parking lot proves that in the winter.
Yeah, I'm the guy at the gas station with the squeegee on the back windows so I can see when I'm.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. So you're losing. I mean, how much money did that save GM to take off that rear wiper? There's your
Arrows, everything. I mean,
Well, just a little fun fact I read about the Trax is that the Trax, I read online that it actually outsold the entire Cadillac lineup in Q3. So it seems like there is this market for low-cost vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm glad that there is another option out there for someone who might say, and they don't have to go up into something more expensive if the Trax just isn't their cup of tea. I could see younger single person want something, want something that's a little flashier than the Trax that doesn't look so, family-like.
right.
And yeah,
Was I say GM does have two good smallish SUVs. I mean, the Trailblazer is a pretty good SUV. It's not up there in the category at the top, but
Yeah.
it's still a pretty competent vehicle. It's still it's a good option. If you find one with a good lease price or you find one, at a good, no dealer, ADM, additional dealer markup or anything like that on it, yeah. There are worse vehicles out there than that. And it's not meant to be a backhanded compliment, but it's a sense of, yes, not the top, but certainly not the bottom. It's a good competitive vehicle. Same with the Trax, lower price. You don't need all-wheel drive. Okay, fine. Buick, nothing wrong, but I don't see the point.
And let me add the Trax. It's way different than the previous generation Trax. It is like night and day, like totally new car. So for anyone out there looking, it's a different vehicle altogether.
So we're definitely have spent a lot more time talking about these. We're going to have road tests up. Sign up for our newsletter so you can get notified as soon as the road test drops. We're going to put that stuff to the test. Like I said, that the 30 miles a gallon, is that really where it goes? The headroom, sometimes the way they measure those things, your head has to be, kind of if you're in traction in the back of the car, then you can fit it absolutely. If you don't move a muscle, you can fit. So we have all our folks of different shapes and sizes jumping in and out of these cars, and we'll tell you what we think of them going forward. But for now, those are our initial thoughts on the Envista. So questions, send your questions to talkingcars@icloud.com, just like Ed from Boston did. And Ed asks, longtime subscriber and listener here, my uncle gifted me my first CR subscription back in August 1996 for my 10th birthday. I think the Ford Contour was among the cars reviewed that month. Fast forward 27 years, and I'm looking for a 3-row SUV for my family. But I'm curious as to how the legroom in the back rows is measured. I understand the front row set to 40 inches. But what happens if the second row has several fore aft positions? How do you decide which position to have it in when measuring? Where do you then position the second row to get the third row measurement? And I love this. This is a super fan with a deep dive. John, what's your answer? What's the answer to this one? Because I don't know.
Yeah, so I talked to Joe Veselik, as we know from the podcast, and it's really just splitting the difference. There's not a measurement necessarily where we set the position, but because a lot of the second rows that move have three settings, you do it kind of in the middle so that you have enough room for the third row person without crushing the legs of the second row person, because the third row generally isn't used a ton. I mean, there's so many 3-row vehicles that we all know people who have them, but they only use 2 rows, and it's a pinch.
It's folded down,
right.
And we got an extra kid we got to take home from soccer practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, 3 couples are going out, so fine. It's in a pinch. They pick it up. So you do something where we put it in the middle position of the 3, and we do seat comfort from that position. That it's not accurate to use, to give you a number with the second row seat pushed so far forward that, okay, it's maximizing third row room, but no adults or humans are going to sit with the second row pushed all the way up against the front seats. So that's how we do it.
All right. So that makes sense. It's relative to the car, not to a specific number.
Right. It's just it'll split the difference. That's how most people are going to end up doing it. That's a consistent thing. Leave it at that. Go from there. Because there are ones that you can't adjust at all as well. So they're a compromise.
Yeah, second rows are getting more complex. Between these, you can do the bench or the captain's chairs. I know what you were driving the CX-90, right? And yeah.
So no, I mean, I can't add anything more to that. You explained our test perfectly for this, but really the best advice I could give in general is just when you pick a couple cars, go and test them out and test the second row and the third row together. Not all second and third rows are created equal, even if you measure it for different body types and that kind of thing. I mean, the CX-90 Mazda and the Volvo XC90 are, very similar sized vehicles.
Right.
Now, when my wife sits between two car seats in the CX-90, she doesn't fit. If the car seats are on the outboard seats, she doesn't fit in the middle seat. The XC90, she fits perfectly, and it's easier to access the third row. So I guess what I'm saying is, despite the measurements and everything, really just go out and test it and sit in them.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say it also goes back to our conversation of the Envista in the sense of, okay, it may have this numeric size, it may have a rating, and it may be, okay, well, this much headroom and this much legroom, et cetera, but it all is also contouring of the seat. It also is how your build is, because a vehicle will work for me that won't work for Steve, vice versa. Even, it may not work for me, it may work perfectly for Steve, or, in a case where I'm taller and, I fit great, why can't you fit? Well, my torso is longer, my legs are shorter, et cetera. So to go on, add on to that, you have to try it. And then also there are vehicles now with more and more hybrids that you see. The second rows don't move because of battery positioning and all of that. So,
especially the plugins.
Right.
Yeah.
So be aware of that. There are some random ones. I think also the Lexus, was it the LX that we borrowed where we rented from Lexus? Second row is fixed.
In an LX.
Right. So it is, there's leg room for the third row, but the second row you couldn't adjust. So that was really odd in that it felt really small in the second row. So you may think, okay, the more expensive the vehicle, the more adjustability you'll have. Not always the case. Sometimes it's compromised because of powertrain.
Yeah, so basically start with the numbers, use it to narrow it down.
Exactly.
And then once you narrowed it down to 2 or 3, go and check it out yourself. Especially if you got those, if you've already got the car seat, if you've already got bring it with you.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100%. Bring the car seat along.
Yeah. Do your
Leave
research.
the kid home with someone, bring the car seat.
Yeah. Or at least they don't have brochures anymore. Can't give the kid brochures. That's how I started. I started with Consumer Reports around the same age. But also, and actually, I got to say, on looking at the ones that I have that are still from my collection when I was a kid, there's some names in the masthead. Anita's name is still on there, and a few names are on there. I love that. That I'm working with the people
that you were reading.
Who I was reading when I was. But yeah, between that, we'd go and get our car fixed at at the dealership, and I'd sit there and I'd be paging through the.
Oh yeah. So you build your car in your mind.
Yeah.
Now you just use the app.
In this case, it was building a Geo Metro in my mind, so it was.
Convertible?
Yeah, no. Oof. All right. Question from Mary, who says, I'm currently driving a 2014 Honda Civic with 49,000 miles on it. It has no issues. It has always been reliable. But on a recent episode, the team shared that if you have a 10-year-old car, you might want to consider upgrading because of new safety features. Would you have a recommendation for something that is reliable, fun to drive, good gas mileage, quiet interior, and a comfy driver's seat? I live in a city and use my car infrequently, so something on the smaller side that's easier to park would be ideal. I think this is a go around the table kind of thing. And I'll go last because I wrote that article about you might want to upgrade your car. So I figure I'll take the hit after Steve. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, if you have to choose a car that's reliable, fun to drive, good gas mileage, a quiet interior, and a comfy driver's seat, I would say, and you only drive 10,000 or less miles, or actually less than, what is it, 5,000 miles a year?
5,000 a year, yeah.
Yeah, that is, I think you need to lease a low mileage electric vehicle. That would be my answer. If you're going to get a new car, maybe like a Hyundai Ioniq 5. I've seen lease deals in like the low 300s a month for Hyundai Ioniq 5s. And that gets incredible gas mileage if you can charge it.
Right.
As long as you have a place to
as long as
driveway
you have
or
a place
somewhere to plug in.
Exactly. And it meets all the other criteria, except maybe it's not that small, but it's pretty easy to maneuver.
Well, that type of driving usage, you could probably just use the wall socket, and, and just keep it on almost like a trickle charge in that respect. So my first suggestion is not to sell the car and not get something new, because again, to the point of 5,000 miles a year, you have you have so many more years of use in that Honda Civic. Now I know that the concern was safety. It doesn't mean that just because there's a new model year or just because there's a new safety feature that the 14 Civic is unsafe. It's just that there's newer features out there that you may want. So, okay, let's just say it's not putting you in danger. You're not in an unsafe vehicle at that point. It's a big expense just to get something that, for the most part, is going to sit around a lot. And I'm assuming that the person with the question is not taking on long highway trips and such at those mileage numbers that are 49,000 miles after 10 years or almost 10 years. So I would say keep that. If you really do need something else, split the difference to try to keep the costs down. So like a 2018 or 2018, 2019 Toyota Prius, or a 2020 Civic, or maybe a 2019 Hyundai Elantra. Good used cars, reliable vehicles, but they'll keep the cost down somewhat compared to buying something that's brand new.
Yeah, and I kind of want to take a step back from the article that episode was based on, and say, it really depends on your situation. I think I would say if you do want to trade in the car, I mean, a low mileage Civic, it's always going to be worth something, and it's never going to be worth more than it is today. We're back sort of in a world where the older the car gets, the less it's worth. We're no longer in this crazy universe where all of a sudden tomorrow it'll be worth this and the next day right. there is kind of a shortage of used cars, but the older the car, the higher the miles, the less it's worth. So if you're thinking, I am thinking of trading it in, I don't think there's anything better you could do than go out and either get, again, low mileage lease, or I would say stick with a Civic. And I would also look at even a new Civic, especially because of that shortage of used cars, that you might be able to get a better deal, especially with interest rates, on a new Civic versus an older one. The one thing about the Civic, you said comfortable driver's seat. I don't know about you. If you found the one in the driver's seat in the old Civic comfortable, you'll be fine with the new one. Honda seats are a little polarizing around here.
Sure.
But great interior, and it's got all that stuff standard. It's got standard automatic emergency braking. And if you're mostly driving around the city, that's the thing I would be the most interested in terms of, because a lot of features are at higher speeds are more useful, the adaptive cruise control, things like that. So yeah, I would stick with the Civic, and I would put it up for sale, and you'll never get more for it. And if you're only putting low mileage on it, you can get into this kind of cycle of every 10 years trading in your car, getting a new one, and then you're never stuck with anything that's super, super old.
True.
So if you're in a financial position, don't put yourself out there to, buy something which you can't afford. But if you're in a position where you can trade this in and do something, just go and get the new one.
Yeah.
Every 10 years, get on that cycle.
I would say, Mara can get a year or so more, at the driving, and then trade it in that way, a little closer to not having to do timing belt or not having to do anything like that, do any water pump or major work on it.
Yeah.
But right, that would be, that like you said, that's a sweet spot, a good, a 10-year-old time frame. Yeah. You rotate through and get the newest, greatest, and it'll be good for 10 years.
But also you could probably hold on to a 2014 Civic that you're driving 5,000 miles on for
another 10 years.
Yeah, easy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
So,
I could understand the feeling of, okay, it is, even by today's Civic standards, a small car.
Yeah.
So everything's bigger around you. I want to have that. But to your point also, you don't need lane keeping assist and lane departure warning to the same extent. You want blind spot warning for driving around town, a backup camera, and forward collision
Unless
warning.
you're doing the thing where you walk and take, I don't know what city we could be talking about. LA, we could be talking about, but I tend to think of, you leave it parked, you walk most places every day, but on the weekends you go out to the country, and then it might be all highway driving. And in that case, maybe it is actually time to upgrade if you're out there. So, no one size fits all advice here, but there's 3 sizes. Maybe one of them will fit. So I hope that helps. If you have questions for us, send them to talkingcars@icloud.com, and check out cr.org for our first drive on the Envista, our first drive on the Trax, which is really what today's podcast was about, and also for advice on 3-row SUVs and everything else we talked about, cr.org. Thanks for talking cars. We'll talk again soon.